Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I was a bit nervous when Rees, our account manager, said, can you come and talk to London Marathon, the great run company, about growing participation? But having heard some of the conversations here today, hopefully there's some bits and pieces that kind of can be reflective in big event organisers, as well as us little organisers as well. So I'm Chris from Rees Leisure. We've got a series of small events down in Southampton and down in Hampshire, and we started our events journey 15 years ago with Try. So it's quite interesting hearing the data behind the triathlons and what's been happening. I think our events probably reflect quite closely to what Sam's team have been saying in terms of we get a lot of people who come back year after year, and the idea of Try is to be that novice and sprint triathlon, to get people into the sport of triathlon, and once they've gone through us, they then go on to go and do Blenheim Triathlon, they go and do the Ironman distance events. So we are very much that kind of top-level filter to get people into those sports as they go through. But it is fascinating how we have people coming back in GB kit. We've got people in Ironman outfits come do a novice and a sprint triathlon because it's their local one. And it allows them to sort of pick their times and see how they're doing for the year as well. So when we first started that, we started that with checks and paper forms. And I've not been going for 60 years or 40 years like some of the companies have. We've just been going since 2009. We used to get paper entries coming in with checks and paper forms. I had to go to the bank to go and put them in and to get them all started. So it's been amazing sort of seeing that journey just in the last 15 years, how we've changed and how much that's changed participation as well. The Southampton Marathon came around because I am a runner, lived in Southampton. I wanted to go and run the Southampton half, started to Google it, started to find, and just couldn't find anything to do with it. So we were a little event organiser organising a 500-person triathlon in Winchester. Emailed the council and said, hiya, my name's Chris, I'd like to organise a Southampton Marathon, or a half marathon, and I've put together some crosses on the landmarks like around the city, and together if we match them up, there's about 13 miles, can we put an event on? And Southampton City Council came back and said, we've got 2 motorways, we've got 3 rivers, and we've got 5 bridges, you've got a port and an airport, and you want to shut roads to this massive transport network just so people can run around the city. And I went, yeah, I do actually. And thankfully, I went in front, there's a presentation in front of all the council members. They came with some quite strong questions about closing it down, and there's a particular part of the section I'm very proud about, which is the Itchen Bridge. And those of you who've been to Southampton may or may not have seen it, but it's basically a bridge that spans the River Itchen. It's 92 feet tall, stretches over the top of the city, and from there you can see the Isle of Wight, you can see St Mary's, the football stadium, you can see the centre of town, you can see the Bargate, you can see the docks, and it's just this awesome bridge you can see. And I had this route that was all dotted around perfectly, and basically there's this one bit that the bridge needed to be shut for the day. And the City Council have had this toll bridge on it since the 1970s, and I said the route really needs to go over this bridge or else it can't really happen. So it was a bit of a hit or miss as to what's going to happen or not. Went in front of the council, they gave me permission to close the bridge, which is really good, and that's what allowed us to kind of move into the Southampton Marathon as it is today. So in terms of talking about growing participation, we started the event back in 2014 was when we first launched it. And my main business is a swimming teacher, so in terms of putting on events, it was a bit unusual for me. So I teach people how to swim, get them into the sport of swimming. I really like to encourage people so they can feel confident if they go out and about to get involved in water sports. I love my sailing, being on the south coast. And when people said they can't come sailing because they couldn't swim, I thought you shouldn't have barriers like that. So my swim school's got 11 swim schools. We've got 11 pools we operate in, 120 swimming teachers, and 2,000 swimmers who swim with us each week. And our first venture into it was the triathlon, as I mentioned, in Winchester, with just 500 people, which then led on to Southampton. We launched the event with just 9 months to go, and the City Council said, how many people do you reckon get involved? And I looked at my triathletes database and said, well, we've got 6,500 triathletes. Maybe they will come and join me and take part in the event. So I just plucked a number out the air and said, we're going to go for 6,500 runners. And I then went to every single networking event possible afterwards to try and make sure I could live up to that. So I became the most networked man in Southampton and got the nickname of the Marathon Man, which is still ironic to this day because I've never actually run a marathon. I run a half though, so that's all right. So the Marathon Man became the most networked person in Southampton, and I decided to launch this event with the event called Marathon. So everyone will say it with me, Marathons. The idea was to get people involved in running and put the fun back into running. Now try doing that every networking event, every phone call, every email, and try and explain to people it's only a half marathon, and actually The marathon bit is spelled F-U-N at the end. It's meant to be fun, and I just got more and more irritated the more people who were asking if they could sign up for the full distance marathon, which we weren't doing at the time. So I launched with Marathon. Went out to lots of different organisations, different groups. I met with local businesses, went into lots of different communities to get them involved as well. And it's quite interesting hearing the panel's conversations about issues with getting people involved. And one of the things that we found is we did do the whole give 100 spaces to free to local communities that have been picked up by the City Council in terms of areas of deprivation. And those of you who may or may not know Southampton, it's basically a northern city in the south that's got quite poor areas around it, but it's surrounded by quite a lot of wealth. But the actual inner city bit is quite a deprived area in certain parts of the city as well. So we decided to give some spaces for free, had the discount codes all set up for 100 free spaces, and 3 people took it up. And I went back to communities after the first year event and said, why, well, we've given you free spaces, what more do you need to kind of get involved? And the biggest thing was transport, was getting from the communities where they were to get them to the city centre was actually a difficult thing to do, A, because some idiot shut the roads on the day, but also because of the physical cost of getting in. So we went back to the bus companies and we spoke to the buses and we said, look, you're not using your buses because we've shut the roads. Can we use your buses to get people into the city? And actually the uptake from that made a massive difference the following year by actually supplying transport to get people into the city centre and back again afterwards. So if you displayed your race number on the way to the event, you got a free lift on the buses. And if you then had your medal on display afterwards, you then got a free lift back home again as well, which is good. And if you didn't finish, you didn't get a lift back. So we launched with Marathon Southampton and all these complications about trying to get the event started. And we went into all the local communities to try and get them involved. And we did get our 6,500 figure in the first 9 months, which was really exciting. So we wanted to make it more fun, wanted to increase the number of people who were involved. So we went through the obvious routes, went through run clubs to get them involved. And I know Parkrun's speaking later on as well, but Southampton's quite famous in our city in terms of being the second largest parkrun in the country on a quite regular basis. So we knew there was a large market in terms of people getting involved. It was based in the Common. We knew we wanted to get more people other than just runners to come and get involved as well. As I mentioned, we had confusion over the name and the distance as well. And then working with all this networking, ended up getting a phone call from a company called ABP, which is Associated British Ports. And I thought I was in trouble because we were going to shut the roads on a Sunday. And they quite famously have a dock train that goes through Southampton, through the main city streets. And the dock train is 120 carriages long and basically brings in containers into the port. And it comes in at 10:10 on a Sunday morning, which is quite a key time for a marathon when you're running around the city. So I thought I was in trouble when I got called in to come and see them, but it turns out they actually wanted to sponsor the event, which is great stuff. And I said, well, it's called Marathon Southampton. You can have Marathon Southampton with ABP. And they said, no, you need to change the name. It needs to be the ABP Marathon. So I've gone in with a sponsorship package. They said, no, they wanted title. So I was a bit irritated at the end of the meeting. I said, fine, you can have title, but I need to double it. And they said, yes, straight away. And I was like, damn, should have tripled it. So they came on board, and the title then became the ABP Southampton Half Marathon and 10K. So let's all say it together. ABP Southampton Half Marathon and 10K. So Jenny, our social media expert, if she's gone, was talking about how to do bits and pieces on socials earlier. When you create the @ handle on Twitter for ABP Southampton Half Marathon and 10K, in 2015, that uses up 25% of your tweets. So before you've even used anything. So we launched the first year event with the ABP Southampton Half Marathon 10K with half the population in Southampton still thinking that we had a marathon going on, which was going to be fun, and the other half who couldn't type it into Twitter and they would just put anything else at the end of it. So this was our first year as the Southampton Half Marathon and 10K, and we wanted to do 2 distances to make sure if people couldn't get to that higher level of the half marathon, we could still offer the 10K and have an alternative to get people involved as well, which is really cool. So we did 2015, 2016 and 2017 as a half marathon and 10K. 2015 was the 6,500 runners. 2016, I had complaints about one of our roads in the city, which is quite high and got a steep elevation through it. So to keep everyone happy, we reversed the route in 2016. had the most number of complaints we've ever had. So we reversed it back in 2017 because it turns out that going the last slog towards the finishing line up towards the Common and Matt runs events in Southampton knows how steep Southampton can be in parts. So we then reversed it back in 2017, which then allowed the numbers and less complaints to come through. After 3 years of doing a half marathon and 10K, we then finally decided that we should then go for the ABP Southampton Marathon. So that was our next title event. So we decided to double up and do 2 laps, and we thought that'd be nice and easy. Basically, runners just run the same thing again. We'll keep it nice and exciting and get them to go through from there as well. So we wanted to have something that people could work towards, push themselves towards, and have that full distance marathon as well. And by this point, we'd had 3 years of people doing the half, 3 years of people doing 10Ks, and people were starting to up their distance and go to higher levels as well, which is really good. So the marathon seemed like the next sensible step for us in terms of boosting participation and moving things forward. So 2018, we put on the first Southampton Marathon. We decided to send them off at slightly different times. So the Southampton Marathon went off first, followed by the half, and then followed by the 10K. And we thought, well, actually, this will all match up quite nicely. It was absolute chaos. The fastest runners from the half marathon caught up with the marathon runners. The 10K fastest runners then caught up with the slowest half marathon runners. And then because of the times we spaced them all out, they all finished at the same bloody time. So our finish gantry was just rammed, and we had people queuing to cross the finish line, pushing people to try and get across the finish. So we learned quite a lot of errors in year 4, when we did our first marathon. But numbers have been continuing to grow. So we went from 6,500, it went up roughly 1,000 per year. 2018 had the first marathon, and then 2019 we decided to do the marathon and the half marathon at the same time to therefore alleviate some of the issues that were coming up with our other poor planning of timings around the course. So 2019, we started to build up. I always knew that we could be a 10,000 person event. 2019, we hit 9,500, so we were just short of that 10,000 target that I wanted to do. So we thought, great, 2020, what a cracking year. It's going to be fantastic. So we decided to go all out for our big 2020 event. We did Sky TV advertising, where you could do some cool local advertising. It's not gone across the whole lot, but basically you could pick it up geo-targeting. It was very clever. And we had the M&S voiceover lady. So it wasn't just a marathon, it was the... which we invested in. So we had this great Sky TV advertising campaign going. Decided to get billboards, and we had these trains advertisings all going through as well. So in train stations, you could see all this advertising coming up, and the whole campaign was building up beautifully towards it. And we decided to scale it all up. So in March time, the month before the event, we're going to have everybody seeing all of this all over the place. And our first advertising campaign went up on the billboards on the 13th of March, 2020. So I don't know if anybody happens to remember the dates of March 2020, but the most advertising we got was when there was a picture of the local paper, which took a picture of the empty streets in Southampton, and you could just see the corner of our billboard where no one was driving past, no one was seeing it. So our big campaign kind of fell slightly flat. So the ABP Southampton Marathon for 2020 got rearranged 5 times. So I'm an optimist. So we went, when we had the information about the closures coming in, we paid extra money to get our T-shirts and medals flown in because we'd heard that something was happening over in China, so we wanted to get all of our stuff out of China. We then heard it was spreading to Europe, so we paid the extra money to fly everything in. And those of you who are event organisers know you do not want to fly medals and T-shirts in because it costs a hell of a lot more money. But we were keen to get it going. We then got postponed 5 times. So eventually, the ABP Southampton Marathon 2020 happened in September 2021. Which I know is a familiar story for most of you in the room. But it was something where, I know Matt and I have talked about this recently, we basically turned into our own Amazon distribution centre, posting out race T-shirts and medals. And for a little while, we changed the name to Rees Leisure, just for a joke, because we had lots of T-shirts that we were posting out. So Rees Leisure was busy posting out 2020 marathon T-shirts. And it was the one only time in our history that actually decided to put the year on the T-shirt. So we're massively regretting that. But anyway, it's all good. So the full marathon, we decided to sort it twice the fun. It was going to be 2 laps. it's going to be great. And fifth time lucky, we were going to push ahead. We finally did that in 2021. Now, I'm not a great one for just sitting down doing nothing, so I thought, how else can we boost numbers? How else can we make the most of the infrastructure? Hopefully, we can get back up to our 10,000 by the time we actually did the fifth time event. But actually, part of that process over that time period, when we'd actually learned how to change the event 5 times in the space of what was 18 months, our processes got a lot slicker in terms of how we put on the events, our processes for the team, learning how we communicate and interact. So we got quite a lot of learnings from that particular time period as well, so you know how to move an event if you need to do it, and how to work with the right sponsors and partners, etc. as well, to keep that all moving forwards. So whilst I was sat in the back of our office with no one else around, packing t-shirts to go out, my brain started to worry about what else could we do to get more people involved, and I decided to come up with the Southampton Sportarium. Yes, exactly, that was the same reaction. So, what is a sportarium? Any ideas what a sportarium might be? Yeah, good, that's exactly the same response. So, it is meant to be a sportif and a criterium, and you put the two together, right? So in the cycle world, it makes sense, but you're still looking at me blank. So a sportif is where you go out to go and do a long-distance ride, and a criterium is a fast one-lap race that happens in the city centre. It made sense. It's been a long year, 2020. So the Southampton Sportarium was born. So in 2021, we finally managed to launch this event, which no one knew what we were talking about. We'd already confused them with the marathon. We'd already confused them with the different distances. And then just to confuse the cyclists as well, we thought, hell, why not? We're doing a sportarium. So similar to the Great Run Series in terms of having something start in the city centre, I just thought I've seen so many sporties where you start in a field, you go out, you come back, and you sort of come and finish in the field, and it's nice, but it's not quite the same as finishing in a city centre. We've already paid for the gantry, we've already paid for the barriers, we've already paid for the road closures. Let's do a cycling event on a Saturday. So it was Cycle Saturday, and then Sunday Run Day. So we got about 500 people sign up for the sportif, and then we managed to do a British cycling's criterium, which then was a regional championship for the South, which was fantastic. So we had this 1 mile closed loop going around the city centre, which was really cool. And we then had juniors taking part. We had early cyclists from sort of 8 years upwards taking part in a closed roads criterium in the heart of Southampton, which was amazing. So we're all very excited about it. And then 9:10 on this Saturday morning, the police with meat wagons and police cars all came storming through our barriers because we happened to have 2 Wetherspoons on the route. And at 9:10, someone pulled out a knife outside of Wetherspoons. So a nice family-friendly city centre experience for a whole family to come get involved with. There was a massive police incident as they had to arrest somebody basically about 100 metres away from our start line for this big new cycling event. Once that all cleared up, though, we managed to get started and have the cycling event. And the Sportarium was born. And, well, following on from the data, and I wish we'd spoken before COVID about data, cycling events are quite difficult to go and put on, as some of you will probably know. Running is very popular. We had the backing behind the council. It was really good in terms of moving things forward. The minute I started to mention cycling and cyclists, geez, you know, the buses were going to withdraw their free buses. There was going to be all sorts of chaos, and we were closing 1 mile in the city centre as opposed to the 13 miles we shut on the Sunday morning. But just the amount of backlash we got for cycling. So a little bit like the Fire Festival, we had 1 sportarium for 1 day, which is amazing. Thoroughly enjoyed it. British cycling loved it. The racers who took part in it and the guys who did the sportif loved it. But the sportarium kind of died a quick and sad death after 1 year, sadly. But it was a cool event, and the name is still available and the domain's still available if anybody wants to step into the sportarium. Right, so names. I've learned over the 10 years that we've been doing this that make sure you're very clear with your messaging in terms of what you want to do. It's good to get more and more people involved and make sure they understand what they're getting involved in. And cycling we thought would be a good one to add into it, but it turns out it wasn't quite right for us. So we thought, right, let's stick to doing running. That's what we do well. That's what we do best. And let's get ready. Let's start afresh, get our marketing campaigns and start again. So for 2022, we decided to get your... Yeah, and what does that sound like if you say it, get your marathon? So we had lots of people who were mispronouncing this bit, so our big campaign, we had our local MPs saying this, we had the local mayor saying it, we've got so many outtakes of people going, get your marathon. And I was like, no, it's on, just on, just on. So again, our marketing campaign was get your marathon, get people into running. It doesn't really make sense, but the marketing team seemed to like that. So 2022, we started to rebuild after COVID and get more people back involved. And we wanted to make sure we pushed what we're doing in terms of getting more runners from different communities get involved, but also focusing on our local communities as well. So it's been quite interesting hearing about the panels today. When I was doing my networking, I have been doing for the last 10 years, I went on to every single radio station we had. We went to all the different community groups. We went to rowers, to sailors, to the football players. In Southampton, we've got a very diverse background down there. We've got about 17% of the population is Polish, but then there's 87 different languages that are spoken in schools, which is a really complicated thing for the local teachers in schools to have to deal with. So we went in to go to the schools to go and do sort of piggybacked on the back of the Daily Run and the Golden Run that some of you might be aware of, that are campaigns that happen in schools. So we then went and handed out the T-shirts and medals that we had left over from 2020 to all the schools so they could then get involved. And if the children then completed a mile distance, or they completed 13 or the 26 miles over a certain time period, they then got to have a medal, and they were then invited to come join the mile fun run at the actual event day as well. And on the event day, similar to hearing the experiences when everyone else is talking about as well, that buzz seeing people cross through the same finish line that the elites were going through, and we use the same start gantry for all of our different races they go through, that buzz that if it's your first 5K, your mile fun run, or whatever it might be, to go through there with the music playing, and we've got Concord boards, which are the boards that you can bang on as you go through, that just buzzed, and it's just a real excited place to be. And the fact that there's a Wetherspoons at the end means that everyone's very enthusiastic over lunchtime as well, which is good. It keeps all the support kind of flowing throughout the whole day, which is really cool. So that was a big thing for us, and the reason why we like to get out of bed and get involved with these things, because it's just a very cool thing for us to do as part of the city. So growing participation for us has always been about making sure we get the name out there, try and get people involved, make it all nice and fun, and unintentionally trying to get good marketing campaigns around the city. Interesting using the data as well. We were looking back about how we actually spend our marketing budget, and I don't know if it was accidentally or just kind of something we were aware of, but we ended up spending about 50% of our money on local advertising and local press to make sure it reached people who maybe weren't runners but would come and support their local events, so be part of the Southampton event. And then we then spent the other 50% on sort of nationwide advertising, but in particular at runners and that sort of demographic as well. And that's worked really well for us over the years as well. So yeah, we had mouthfuls where people get your marathon wrong, and also just the moths that were starting to take over our storage unit from all those boxes of T-shirts that have been sat there over the years. So local spend, the Daily Echo is our local paper in the south, and when I first launched the event back in 2014, I did some sort of local research on like the Reading Half Marathon, the Oxford Half Marathon, and the one that I kept on seeing every single year for, I think it was for Oxford, was basically before the event, oh bloody hell, here comes the event, here's a list of all the road closures that are happening, and then afterwards there's a picture of like 10 or 20 bottles on the road saying, oh, there's bottles everywhere, what a mess. And that was the two kind of press things that I saw in terms of local press. And I went, well, we need to make sure that local press is on our side, and we need to make sure it's a win-win-win for everyone who's involved. So we made sure that we were promoting our charities, our local community groups. We do big check presentations to our 34 different mile maker groups from all the different communities that we've got involved. We donate £250 to each group, but we also give them all a free space as well, which can and can't be taken up by the groups depending on the level of interest. And for us, making sure that we kept it local with this advertising and having that sort of front page made such a big difference in terms of the city growing. And it's lovely that Southampton has embraced us as an event. We are one of the major events in the city. We've got Premier League Stadium, we've got the Southampton Boat Show that happens down there as well. And it's just been really nice for us to be able to kind of have this local event with a local feel, which is represented by the people from Southampton. And the nice thing was, for the first 6 years of the event, we actually hit the same time as London. So all of the sort of serious runners, as it were, or the sort of the elite runners, were all heading off to London. But people then had the same store on the Monday when they actually took part in the Southampton event. And for the first 5-6 years, we had people from Southampton Running Club or Portsmouth Running Clubs who were winning the event as opposed to it being elites. So for us, it was quite nice that it was Southampton people who sort of been put onto the stage, local people who'd sort of trained and maybe not managed to get into London, then managed to come and sort of get their place in the podium with Southampton as well, which is really cool. So we're just really proud in terms of being able to have that positivity that comes from everyone from the local media to local businesses, local communities, and making sure that it is a positive for the city and those communities who take part and help us to make the event what it is as well, which is really cool. So the power of media, feed them stories. We've got thousands of stories, and I know Paul mentioned it in terms of it is PR gold in terms of what comes through, but it's making sure we also tell those stories because they're all impactful of local communities. The monies that have gone back into the local communities, we've donated over £90,000 to local community groups. We've got scout groups who've redone their roofs. We've got rowing clubs that have bought new boats and have bought new paddles, etc. as well. And it's just really nice to be able to have those regular touch points to see how the money's been spent and what they've done with us over this last decade as well. And it's all about getting the win-win-wins for everybody. So it's a good promotion of the city, good promotion of the event, but also good news stories for those local community groups as well. And to keep it simple for the 10th edition for the year, we've decided just to call it Run ABP. So we keep it nice and simple, people know what they're doing, coming to get involved, and that's our story from 2015 to 2025.